Audiobooks and beyond.
The Whispering Wires, narrated by Perez. The sterile smell of the dentist's office was a smell I knew well and hated. It was a mix of minty cleaner and something else, something sharp and cold, like a freshly sharpened tool. My name is Lily, and I was 11 years old, sitting in the dreaded chair for the first time without my older brother to hold my hand. My stomach was a knot, not just from the usual fear of the drill, but from a deeper dread. Today was the day for the braces. Dr. Finch, a tall man with a calm, almost unnervingly still face, walked in with a tray full of instruments. They were all shiny and silver, glinting under the harsh overhead light. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Ready for the big day, Lily?" he asked, his voice a low, smooth rumble. I just nodded, clutching the worn arms of the chair. The procedure began with a cold, metallic taste in my mouth. He worked with a meticulous, almost robotic precision. The whirring of the tools was a high-pitched whine that seemed to bore directly into my ears, and the smell of ozone became stronger. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to tune out the scraping and the pressure, but I couldn't ignore the bizarre, rhythmic clicks that accompanied each movement of his fingers. It was as if something was being wound up inside my mouth, a tiny clockwork of metal and wire. After what felt like an eternity, he was done. "There you go," he said, stepping back. My mouth felt foreign, a fortress of steel and rubber bands. "You'll be a little sore. Take some Tylenol if you need to." I didn't say anything, just felt the strange sensation with my tongue. The wires were there, a metallic cage around my teeth. I ran my fingers over them, feeling the cold, smooth surfaces. As I left the office, a strange thought occurred to me. The braces felt almost warm. That night, the initial ache was intense, a throbbing reminder of the day's work. I swallowed a pill and curled up in my bed, trying to fall asleep, but sleep wouldn't come. I couldn't get comfortable. No matter how I lay, there was a faint, high-frequency hum coming from inside my mouth. It was just a little sound, a tiny vibration that I could feel in my jaw, a constant, irritating buzz. I went to the bathroom, peering into the mirror. The braces looked normal under the soft light. Just a network of silver wires and tiny brackets. I splashed water on my face and went back to bed. The hum was still there, but now it was different. It wasn't just a vibration. It was a rhythm. Hum. Buzz. Hum. Buzz. I closed my eyes, and in the silence of my room, I thought I heard something else too, a sound so quiet it was barely there, a faint rustling, like dry leaves skittering across a sidewalk. It seemed to be coming from the braces. Shh. I sat up, my heart pounding. I looked around my dark room. Nothing. The sound was definitely coming from my own head. It was just the feeling of the new braces, I told myself, my mind playing tricks on me. But then, as I lay back down, a new sound came. A whisper. It was almost inaudible, like a secret told on the other side of a large room. It was a single, slurred syllable, followed by another. It wasn't a language I knew, but it felt familiar, like I was supposed to know what it was. The next morning, I woke up with the ache still there, but also a new, more unsettling feeling. I looked in the mirror, and the sight sent a jolt of panic through me. A single wire, the one connecting the two front teeth, was slightly askew. I knew it wasn't like that when I went to sleep. It was perfectly straight. At breakfast, the whispers were back. They were still quiet, but I could hear them over the clink of my spoon against the bowl. They were a jumble of soft sounds, like a radio station with bad reception. I tried to chew my cereal, but the texture of the metal felt wrong, almost twitchy. A small, involuntary movement happened in my jaw, a tiny tremor that made the metal grate against itself. A faint click. That afternoon, alone in my room, I held a hand mirror and stared into my mouth. I wanted to see if the wire was still bent. But as I watched, the wire moved. It didn't bend, it shifted. The tiny bracket on my left front tooth slid to the right by a fraction of an inch, pulling the wire taut, and as it did, I felt a sharp, icy sensation run through the tooth, up into my skull. The whisper surged, no longer a faint murmur but a chorus of urgent, hissing sounds. I slammed the mirror down, my breath coming in short gasps. The feeling was still there. The cold, icy pinprick in my tooth, the low hum, the whispers, all connected. I felt the first wire tighten on its own. It was a slow, agonizing turn, pulling my front teeth together. The pain was excruciating, but it wasn't the pain that terrified me. It was the feeling of something else, something other, moving inside me, controlling the metal. I tried to pull the braces off with my fingers, but they were locked on tight. My hand flew to my mouth, but it was useless. It was like trying to stop a train with my bare hands. The wires hummed a low, ominous tune as they moved. They weren't just tightening, they were weaving. The top row, then the bottom, the wires twisting and braiding into a bizarre pattern. A small loop formed on one side, then another on the other. They weren't moving to straighten my teeth anymore. They were forming a design, a strange, beautiful, and utterly wrong kind of geometry. And the whispers, they were no longer just whispers. They were a rush of voices, speaking together, all at once, a wave of sound crashing against my eardrums. I could feel the vibrations of their voices right in my teeth, up into the bones of my face. The sounds were guttural and sharp, a language made of clicks and scrapes. And then, one voice, clearer than the rest, cut through the noise. A single word. It was the same word I had heard the night before, a single, sibilant command. I couldn't understand it, but I knew what it meant. It meant that my teeth, my jaw, my entire skull was no longer my own. The braces had found their purpose. They weren't for straightening my smile, they were for something else. Something older and far more sinister. They were a key, and they had just been turned. The pain faded into a dull, constant ache. The wires stopped moving, locked in their new, terrifying formation. The voices in my head fell silent, but the feeling of them lingered, a ghost of sound on my tongue. I went to the mirror and looked at my reflection, and the sight made me go completely still. The new pattern was subtle, just a slight twist here, a new curve there. But it was no longer the neat, tidy work of an orthodontist. It was a symbol. A perfect alien symbol woven into the very structure of my smile. And as I stared at it, I had a sudden, undeniable thought. A thought that wasn't mine. It was a thought that came from the whispers. A thought that felt as cold and hard as the metal in my mouth. It is done. We are in